Hello there. In this video I'm going to talk about creating pendant lampshades using parametric Nurbs curves using FluidDesigner for 3D printing. So something a little bit like the one in the bottom right hand corner there. So if we go to FluidDesigner, so here are some examples that are on the system. So this is created using a Parametric curve, Celtic knot curves, Enipa curves, and the one on the screen at the moment is this tennis seam curve one. So that's the sort of style that you can get. Now they're not easy to work with, these objects. You need a bit of luck sometimes and a lot of patience, but you can get some interesting designs. Now if I just delete that one and just delete the other object over there. Now I'll leave the candle light on the screen there for what I'm going to do. And what you must do is you must go to our website at fluiddesigner.co.uk and install the curve add-ons to find these curves here. Now some of them work really well for producing pendant lampshades, some of them are not so great, and sometimes it's down to a little bit of luck as well. So I'm going to try this one, this wire dish one, and if I press the N key to open up the properties panel on the right hand side there, you'll see that this object is quite small at the moment. It's just 2.75 by 2.82 centimeters. So how can we change that? Well, the panel in the left is the panel to work with. So if I change the scale value from 3, I'm just dragging the mouse to the right, you can see that's massively increased the size of the object. And the scale basically changes it in the X and the Y direction, the red and the green arrows there. The height, if I change the height number, as you can see, that will change the height, but notice it's also narrowing the hole at the bottom as well, so you do need to, you know, play around with these to get what you want. Now we've also got a P value here, and if I reduce the P value down to 3, you can see what we've got. We've basically, it's a little bit like the leaves on a tree, so there's like 3 leaves, 4 leaves, 5 leaves, 6 leaves, and as we do this we're changing the pattern. Now before we go too far, obviously in terms of a lamp, it's kind of upside down, you know, we really want it that sort of way, so I could just flip it over, but I want to talk about the resolution as well. Now if I press the tab key, at the moment the resolution is 180. If I press the tab key, the resolution is essentially all of those control points there. Now the more control points you have, the more faces in the final object you have, and sometimes it can get a little bit too large. So what I would suggest is if I just go to add curve and wire dish again. Now whenever you start working in the middle of the screen, this panel on the left can disappear. So if I set the resolution to 20 for example and press the tab key, you can clearly see that there's much fewer control points there. There is just 20 of them, right? But notice that the panel on the left has disappeared. Now as long as you immediately go to add curve and wire dish, you'll get the last settings. Now I'm going to set the resolution at about 120 rather than 180, and if I tick the plus box on the left here, you'll see there are some values called U and V. Now as I change the U value, notice my pattern is changing. And as I change the V value, notice the pattern's changing, but it's actually the height that's changing. Now this will vary from curve to curve as to what will happen, and something, you know, will change with rounds. Now not always, it does depend upon the particular one that you're using. Now the rounds one's not doing great for me at the moment, but you've basically got to just play around with these numbers until you get something that you like the look of. Now that's a little bit, well no, it's maybe not too tall. Alright, so you just play around with all of these numbers until you get some sort of design that you like the look of. Now we want something a little bit more interesting than that. And yeah, alright, well no, something, let's see if we can get something a little, no, actually that one's not too bad there. We'll go for that design there, and I'm going to bring the V down a little bit. We could of course have scaled the height here by reducing the height value. Okay, So I'm going to work to that one at the moment. Now, also in the left-hand panel, there's a bevel value here of 0.5. Now, that's the radius, 0.5. That means a thickness of 1. If you double the radius, you get a thickness of 1. So the default thickness of this mesh, of these curves are 1 millimeter. Now, if I set that down to 0, you'll see we go back to the raw curve. But what I'm going to do is to recommend that you add a new bevel object. So if you go to Object Library and go to Templates, Cross-Section, Bevel Objects. Now you could have a circular cross-section, which is what the default one was, but I'm going to add a rectangular cross-section bevel object and click OK. Just click outside the yellow box somewhere, and the default size over in the right here is 1 millimeter by 1 millimeter. So I'm going to change that to 2 millimeters and 4 millimeters and apply the scale. Notice the panel on the left all changes once you do that sort of thing. And if I highlight the pendant lamp now, if I select bevel object here and change it to the rectangular bevel object, there's my 2x4. Now you can play around with the 2x4 by selecting the bevel object again. So I could change the Y dimension to say 8 millimeters and the X to 3 millimeters and apply the scale. And you can play around with that as much as you want until you get the appearance that you like. Now if I just go to view and front view, if I just rotate this wire dish about the x-axis 180 degrees, I've selected the wrong object there, 180 degrees. Still selected the wrong object, 180 degrees. Alright, you can see that that looks a little bit more like my lampshade. And if I just perhaps position, I'll just switch off the snap, just position my light bulb where it might actually go. Now if I want to resize this now, if I go into edit mode and press A key on the keyboard and go to view and front view, I could scale it in the Z direction, and I could just scale it generally and reduce it down. Now it's very important to do that in edit mode. If you don't, the bevel object over here that we set as, I forgot what we set it at now, at 3x8, that won't be applying anymore. So you must edit at this stage in, you must scale in edit mode. Don't scale it in normal mode because the bevel object won't work anymore. Now I need to try and tighten it up at the top there, so if I go to view and front view, and I'll just close the properties panel down. If I go into edit mode, now if I just select some of the control points near the top there and switch on proportional editing and then scale, and I'm just dragging out the mouse towards me so that it affects the rest of the object, so I can scale in there, and then you have to go out of edit mode to see what it looks like. So you've got to play around with that until you get the right sort of hole at the top, till you get the right sort of dimensions for your object. Now it's probably just, if I look at view and front, the whole thing's probably just a little bit too short at the moment. So if I just highlight the control points and scale in the Z, I can just increase the size in the Z there as well. Alright, so you can go into edit mode there and play around with it until you get the size and whatever that you want. Alright, so that's a little bit about how you can use these Nurbs curves to create lampshades. And you just export that as an OBJ file, run it through Netfab Basic, and it'll be 3D printable. But you obviously do need to be careful about the hole at the top, and that's going to depend upon the bulb, the cable and the fittings that you use. So thank you for watching.